Hello, my name's Sarah and welcome to another video. So today we are going to focus on pronouns. So chances are you know what a pronoun is in a general sense. You probably learned about it in your English or grammar classes growing up, but it is a grammar concept in general. And if you need a refresher, a pronoun refers to a placeholder to refer to someone without using their name, or maybe refer to a specific thing without using its name. So a lot of different examples of them in the English language. You have I, you, we, they, he, she, it. All of these are pronouns. In the context of gender and gender expression, when we're talking about pronouns, we're really only focused on the third person. So we're not too focused on I or you, but rather he, she, they, the third person pronouns. So an example of this is when you have some sentence like Alex went to the store, it may become she went to the store. Pretty basic, pretty simple. So many folks in the trans community use pronouns outside of she or her. We often refer to these as gender neutral pronouns. They can be a better fit for people who don't identify solely or at all as masculine or feminine. And when we think about gender neutral pronouns, there are generally two different categories. One being the singular they, which we'll talk about first, and the other being neopronouns. So to start out with the singular they. So this is the most common gender neutral pronoun used, and that's oftentimes because it's already a pronoun that English speakers use pretty frequently and are familiar with. There's a myth when we talk about gender neutral pronouns, and people kind of talk about they in particular, that they is only ever used for multiple people. It's a myth because there are a lot of times in the English language when we use they to refer to a singular person. This is usually when we're referring to an unknown person or someone that we don't know, haven't seen. So an example of this that you've probably used at some point is if someone's knocking on the door, you probably say something like, "Can you go see what they want? What are they knocking for?" We're probably guessing that it's a singular person at the door, but we use they because we don't know who that is. We don't know if they're a man, woman, or any other gender. So when using they to refer to a singular person, it's correct to follow the grammar patterns as if you were referring to multiple people. This can get confusing at times, but that's why it's really important to utilize context and get used to kind of the flow of it. So when you're thinking of how to use the singular they, it's generally incorrect to use it as they is doing something, they is arriving, they is going to the store. It's more correct to use the plural, which is they are doing something, they are arriving, they are going to the store. So on the other side of things, we have neopronouns. So neopronouns are pronouns created specifically for the purpose of being gender neutral. Some folks don't like using singular they. This could be because of some of the confusing parts of it, or maybe just because they doesn't seem to fit for them very well. There's a lot of different neopronouns that we could go over and cover. The two most common ones that you might see are ze, he, or hears. So those are spelled ze, hrir, hirs, and ze, zem, zir, which is xe, xem, xyr. So unlike singular they, neopronouns typically follow the grammatical structure of she, her, and he, him pronouns. So an example might be ze thinks, so with nas, thinks that's a good idea, or they likes the summer weather. So utilizing gender-neutral pronouns can be tricky if you're unfamiliar with them. It's okay to not be perfect at first. The best thing you can do as an ally is to practice, especially when it comes to talking about people you know who use gender-neutral pronouns. So a couple good ways to start practicing is to gossip. In a nice way, of course. So talking with a friend or even talking aloud by yourself about the other person, maybe the named person you know who uses a gender-neutral pronoun, can help you in referring to them by their correct pronouns in the third person. Maybe it's even just writing down or speaking aloud interactions you've had with them, or maybe some of your favorite stories with them. You can also practice pronouns in general just by replacing common pronouns with ones you're less familiar with. Maybe writing up sentences or a paragraph about an imagined individual using a pronoun you're familiar with at first, and then going through and rewriting it a second time using they or a neopronoun. Speaking the sentences out loud and getting used to the feel of different pronouns can also be really helpful. So it can be really confusing at first. Sometimes it's helpful to have a visual aid. So on the screen right now is an example of a lot of the different kinds of pronouns and the different ways that you use them, their different forms. Take a picture, screenshot it, whatever you need to utilize this as a resource. So going forward, what if I mess up? This is one of the biggest concerns a lot of allies have when it comes to using new pronouns or pronouns we're less familiar with. When it comes to pronouns, there is a correct way to mess up. The biggest thing is stay calm. No one speaks perfect grammar all the time. You've probably messed up other pronouns and not really realized it because it seemed so innocuous at the time. Acting flustered or upset when you misgender someone sends a message either directly or indirectly to that person. Drawing more attention to that mistake can make them uncomfortable or feel isolated or othered. You can also end up shifting the focus of the mistake onto yourself, as in making it more about preserving your image as an ally rather than allowing the conversation to flow forward and the mistake to be corrected. An easy strategy to follow when you use the wrong pronouns is to stop, briefly apologize, and correct. So maybe it's helpful to have an example. So an example of a bad mistake would sound like this. I was talking to her. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I meant that. I meant them. I'm so bad at remembering it. I'm really trying to do better. It's just so hard to remember and yada, yada, yada. Bad example. Putting the focus on yourself, putting the focus on the mistake as opposed to just correcting it. So a good example. I was talking to her. Sorry, I was talking to them the other day. And then you continue the conversation. So pronoun usage is a critical block on the road of allyship, even if it is something that seems pretty small, innocuous at first, whether it's utilizing gender-neutral pronouns or learning how to use new pronouns after someone comes out to us. Using someone's correct pronouns is a basic sign of respect. It's okay if you aren't perfect at first, but you should never try to avoid or ignore someone's pronouns because it's too hard. Being an ally means putting in the work and the practice. We can also work to create an environment where pronouns are shared more readily. As allies, we can normalize communicating pronouns by incorporating it into our introductions. So an example could be, my name is Sarah and I use she, her, hers pronouns. Or you could also include it in written media, such as your email signature, social media profiles, and perhaps even your resume. If you're hoping to learn more about pronouns, or if you still feel like you have a lot of questions, a really great resource to start with is a website called My Pronouns, mypronouns.org. This website goes even more in depth than this video and includes resources to help you become a pronoun master. So in our next video, we're going to start focusing in on transitioning, what it is and how we can support loved ones through it. Thank you and have a great day.